Chrissy, are you there? Okay, we're getting ready to start.
Next little section is the stresses of prison ministry. It's kind of short. Let's read that real quick. This brief section addresses the operational insight of ministry rather than the tension and frustrations of ministry. The stresses which are referred to are actually the Christ-like points of ministry which community service chaplain should strive to emanate. Remember to stress the centrality of love, stress the importance of inner attitude, as well as the wellspring of overt behavior. Stress the need for faith rather than fear. Stress the need for altruism instead of egocentricity or selfishness. Stress the need for understanding sympathy instead of legalistic censorship. Stress the need for humility instead of unbending pride. Pretty self-explanatory, but important. I'd reread that a couple times. Section 3 is profiles of volunteer workers and community service chaplains. It says the importance of volunteer workers and community service chaplains cannot be overstated. Each year, the prison system throughout the United States saves tens of thousands of dollars through the utilizing the community service chaplains and other volunteer workers. This is real important. Pay attention. Thousands of volunteers go to jails and prisons to tell of the love and grace of God. Many who start this ministry soon drop out, while others continue but are ineffective. Some work fervently for a while, then lose something within themselves. Why do we stay in this ministry such a short period of time? Why do others eagerly embark upon the ministry of service and calling, yet shortly thereafter lose their impetus and soon find the fire of prison ministry waning away? The community service chaplain needs to look long and hard at some of the reasons for failure and abruptly dropping away from this ministry. Can someone read number 1, please?
Some enter into prison ministry without appropriate orientation. They are unaware of the cost associated with this dynamic ministry. Many feel that the prison is merely an extension of their own church and pulpit. They are not aware of the rules and regulations which accompany such a ministry. The community service chaplain may feel he or she has a theological and counseling training needed, yet he or she is unable or unwilling to work within the structure of the correctional system.
Okay, pretty important. How about number 2?
Community service chaplain may face a situation never encountered before. That is, those to whom the chaplain is ministering may often be far less than honest in their relationship with the chaplains. This is not to say that all who are incarcerated are never honest with regard to their spiritual well-being. However, it is imperative for the chaplain to know that many inmates will struggle for privileges which are rare to them. They are not above using the community service chaplain or volunteer prison worker to attain their goals.
True? True. How about number 3?
A large number of volunteer workers and community service chaplains do not make it as prison chaplains because they are focused on the wrong motives. The motive of the prison worker has to be one of genuine care for the inmate, officer, or administrator. If the community service chaplain is on some type of ego trip or feels that she always needs to know what crime some inmate has committed so he can tell war stories to his or her colleagues outside of law, then the chaplain's heart is not really into the ministry to the system.
Exactly. Never, ever ask what they are in for. Not our business.
It may affect the way,
They'll tell you.
and it may affect the way we minister to them if we find out it's
Exactly.
sexual or,
Like the unspeakable crimes.
right.
maybe crimes against a child or
Right.
whatever, that would skewer your ability to minister effectively to them. Can't let that even enter your mind.
That is one of the hardest things I've had to do at this church,
Yes, sir.
you know.
Is show Jesus' love to someone that
Yeah,
we
I
might
mean-
think didn't deserve it,
You know,
Mhm.
but they are.
you know, and that sometimes we need to, you know, us as members of this church, sometimes we need to know certain things about certain people. That, you know, keeps us on the watch for the children.
Exactly,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
exactly.
But not everybody needs to know.
No.
Not everybody needs to
No.
know, and generally, you know, somebody,
The security team needs to know.
Absolutely.
you know,
The
somebody of authority will tell you.
Children, people need to know.
The what?
Children's lead, the head, Susan, somebody
Yeah.
needs to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now we're gonna cover some profiles real quick. Someone read A, the ego tripper.
These individuals are those who, in volunteering to minister in a jail or prison, do so for their own benefit. In seeking to help others, they actually repress their desire to say that they are bigger or better than those whom they minister. They set themselves up for a game called I Am Only Trying to Help You. This game goes something like the following example. The inmate approaches the community service chaplain and requests a solution to a personal problem. The volunteer tells him how to solve the problem and he prays about it. Later, the inmate comes back and tells the volunteer that the solution didn't work and blames the chaplain. The community service chaplain exclaims, "Well, I'm only trying to help you." The inmate is satisfied because he has embarrassed the chaplain, and the chaplain soothes his or her guilt for failure by saying that nobody does what he or she tells them to do. The underlying motive behind the response is to cause the inmate to believe he or she is ungrateful and disappointing to the chaplain. Other community service chaplains on the same ego trip approach inmates with the attitude, "I'll show you the way to live," or "I'll show you what you're doing wrong." In so doing, the chaplain risks showing an attitude of superiority over another person. Another way that the ego tripper may have revealed is seen in his or her attitude toward the institution full-time chaplain. The ego tripper is a self-ordained advisor to the chaplain, since he or she has so much knowledge of what needs to be done and how to do it. And since he or she has a corner on God, the ego tripper feels that he or she must tell the chaplain how things really should be done. He watches to see what the chaplain does wrong, and woe to that chaplain if indeed he or she does err. The ego tripper can then express that the inmate and other volunteers that the chaplain is not a worthy minister. Then setting will continually bring about a series of frustrations for both the institutional chaplain and the community service chaplain. The losers will actually be the inmates and others to whom ministry is due.
So in that scenario, would that make you an effective chaplain? No. Someone read number two, B, please. The big rescuer.
The big,
Often,
go ahead.
often a community service chaplain will attempt to be the big rescuer. He or she will listen to an inmate recite abuses or injustices, and then the community service chaplain will attempt to go to the warden or the institutional chaplain and change things. Such attempts of ministry will be met with frustration and failure. Some community service chaplains will listen to the inmate tell of how his wife is mistreating him, cheating on him, or displaying some other act of unfaithfulness. With righteous indignation, the community service chaplain will go to the wife to change her attitude toward her husband. This is often met with rebuke or an alarming call to the institutional chaplain and warden. The big rescuer has been known on some occasions to lend money or bring something to the inmate. This, of course, is a violation of policy and possibly the law. The payoff is seen by the rescuer providing a certain satisfaction for being able to help. In reality, however, the chaplain set him or herself up for many games and has accomplished nothing but becoming a fool in the eyes of the inmate.
I saw a sergeant lose his stripes for the offense of giving tea to a female inmate. Pretty minor, Yeah, but there are rules against it. Okay, so you can break the rules and maybe get kicked out of the institution that you work for. But listen to what I'm telling you. You can do something that literally violates the law and end up in there with them.
Yeah.
Trust me. And it may be something that you would think, that's small and trivial. Not in a jail or a prison, it's not. So those rules and regulations are in force for a reason. And it's not just to protect the administration or the guards, it's for everybody's safety. So if you're going to work in that environment, know that stuff. Pay attention to it and abide those rules and regulations. Do not break them, because it could end you up in a life-altering situation. What about the C, the zoo tripper?
If you volunteers wish to go to jail or prison out of curiosity, they are interested or curious as to what goes on inside such a place. They read about and have heard lurid details of prison life and would want to see these things for themselves. Unfortunately, there is always a tendency to want to know what the person is in for. The chaplain is often not as interested in sharing the love and the grace of God as he or she is in satisfying his or her own curiosity.
Just don't. Just don't. Number D, the seeker of rewards. There are a few volunteers who do jail or prison ministry in the hope of gaining rewards. There are certain rewards which do come with this type of ministry. A community service chaplain may find this to be a way of receiving a special acknowledgement from his/her congregation. He/she might also get a sense of satisfaction from being able to control certain situations, like coming and going in and out of a prison door as he/she pleases. These, among other self-serving issues, could be well motives for this profile. Pay attention to these profiles and what they're telling you. I'd reread them. How about E? I want to be different.
Some folks have an inner desire to be different from others. If others wear ties to church, he wears an open shirt. If others teach or preach in a church, he or she teaches in a jail or restaurant. He or she wants to be different. This profile also includes the individual who has difficulty conforming to the doctrines and discipline of a local church, and who therefore finds a group that is much more like him or herself than perhaps he or she wishes to acknowledge.
Most of these come down to me, in my mind, as people who are prideful. So that should tell you this is something to be avoided. How about the self-gratifier, number F?
This reality is a ministry phenomenon not easily explainable. The volunteer community service chaplain is burdened with some unresolved guilt or failure. Unconsciously, he or she ministers to him, herself, by ministering to others who have similar problems. Underneath, she feels guilt and projects that guilt onto someone else. Then she can say that the other person is the one who really needs the grace of God. She feels that she is a sinner, yet sees others as the ones who need the ministry of the grace of God. So this is a substantiary ministry. She ministers to him, herself, by ministering to others. There is little ministry actually being done, either to the inmate or to the chaplain.
Answering the call. This profile addresses those people who feel deep inside a definite call that God wants them in a ministry to prisons and jails. This is a call not only to serve the Lord in a particular capacity, but a call to express care for others in a particular setting. It is this profile of a community service chaplain that seeks to meet the needs of the incarcerated. Much like Isaiah of the Old Testament, these chaplains get a vision from God. This vision is often of God than of themselves. Hence, they are able to enter into the walls of a jail, prison, or other place of incarceration and genuinely meet the demands of the Great Commission. Remember, that's what we're there for. That's all we're there for. Period. So I keep going back to that. The next section talks about the volunteer's personal well-being. Is that something you think might be a little important?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Someone read the first paragraph for me, please.
Chaplains and other volunteers must care for themselves in order to be effective in this ministry. Jesus said in Matthew 22:39, "Love your neighbor as yourself." The chaplain's well-being, like that of any other minister, is vulnerable to assault in 5 basic areas: spiritual, mental, social, including family, physical, and professional.
Okay, so in many situations, when you're going into a jail or a prison, you're seeing things and experiencing things that, let's say, most church folk and normal folk out here in the community ain't gonna hear about. They may see something on the news or a TV show that's similar, but you're going in there and you're getting 8 hours straight of it, okay? All day, every day. In many cases, the officers working in jails and prisons feel like they're an inmate just like everybody else. It's just they have a little different scenario. It takes a toll. And these areas that it mentions, yes, every one of them. How about, let's talk about spiritual. Someone wanna read spiritual?
These dangers are common to most Christian workers.
Mhm.
First is the failure to include adequate time in your schedule for prayer.
Oof.
Without prayer, men faint. Luke 18:1. Without prayer, we lack wisdom of God. James 1:5. Without adequate prayer, we worry unnecessarily. Philippians 4:6-7 and 1 Peter 5:7. Without prayer, the chaplain's ministry will lack power.
What about a second danger?
The second danger is neglect of Bible study. You must have a love for the Bible and have a word from God for those you minister to, and to feed your own soul. The Word of God equips the representative of God for personal service to God. 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17.
How about the third danger?
Third danger is walking by sight and not by faith.
Mm.
2 Corinthians 5:7. 2 Corinthians 2:14-6:10 is an excellent reminder of God's faithfulness in calling, directing, and empowering his servants so that they may daily walk by faith, not by sight.
Next page, 1 John 1:9 deals with sin that must be confessed if it enters one's life. This is needed by all who want to effectively minister to others who need spiritual cleansing. Failure to deal with sin will wreck your ministry and destroy your Christian joy. I'd read that again.
Yeah.
Failure to deal with sin will wreck your ministry and destroy your Christian joy. Is it kind of important? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about mental. Someone read the first paragraph of the mental.
Mental, the thought of the chaplain faces at least 4 main dangers. The first is mental fatigue. The heavy demands of your ministry and your volunteer work may put you under such stress that your thoughts become tangled because of the rush in which you find yourself. At this point, it is necessary to rest a while. Mark 6:31. You need to redeem the time, the days are evil, because the days are evil. Ephesians 5:16. But your life should not be transient. Second mental danger is emotional involvement with the inmates. You must not identify too closely with the inmates to whom you minister, losing objectivity and becoming too emotionally involved with them. Or you want me to keep reading?
Sure.
Pride is another pitfall to avoid. Because so many depend upon you for help, you may easily become filled with proud thoughts. This can occur if you become hypercritical of others and slow to recognize your own weakness. Paul gives a good prescription for this ailment in Galatians 6:1. Brother, if someone is caught in this sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch yourself, or you may also be tempted. Finally, don't succumb to a defeated attitude. It is easy for the volunteer to develop a defeated attitude. Many to whom you minister will reject you, your help, and your message. Many whom you counsel will continue to live defeated, discouraged, dismal lives. This does not mean that you have missed your calling or that you are ineffective, but it still hurts when these feelings press upon you. When overcome by a defeated overlook, the chaplain ministry will become ineffective and limited.
So it's saying it can take a toll on you? Oh, yeah. And that's something you have to guard against and study against and pray about often, because it will break you. It can and does. It breaks strong people all the time, and they become ineffective. And if you're ineffective, then who are you helping? Nobody. So if you're going there to help and to shine the light of Jesus, then you gotta take care of yourselves. That's very, very important. What about social dangers? Someone wanna read social dangers?
Social dangers, one area of potential is the neglect of your family. It is sometimes easy to fail to provide spiritual leadership in your home. Make sure you meet your relaxation, entertainment, and amusement needs with your family. Spend adequate time with your spouse and children. The seriousness of this can be seen by the Apostle Paul's warning that to fail to provide for one's family is worse than hearsay. Some ministers go to one of two extremes about their society: neglect or conformity. Some do not keep up with current events and have no political involvement, not even voting. They lack any understanding of current events, language, music, and art. In contrast, Paul knew of these things: games, language, and philosophy, and literature. He sought to be all things to all people in order that he might save some. Others go to another extreme, willingly conforming to the thought pattern of this society, and put material gain and security ahead of serving God. To be a successful chaplain and volunteer, you must be otherwise content with the such things that you have, and seeking God's kingdoms first.
Okay. How about physical?
Physical may fail, Many fail to consider their physical needs adequately. Failure to do so will not only make the chaplain ministry more difficult, it also dishonors God, since we are commanded to dedicate our bodies to Him, Romans 12:1. 3 areas where a person is likely to abuse or neglect his body are exercise, diet, and rest. If a chaplain will pay attention to these, he or she is likely to maintain the vigor and stamina required for an effective ministry.
That's true in life generally anyway.
Yeah.
And when we don't, then we see all kinds of problems that manifest themselves: illnesses, stress-related illnesses. It ain't a good thing. And finally, professional. Professional, this is a critical area to remember. A chaplain must always be professional in dealing with both male and female inmates. The danger is in 2 extremes. 1, of just being a professional who cannot identify with hurting humanity, and 2, losing your professional identity to become one of the gang. Both those are, don't do it. And with that, break.
Right.
Knock on Lisa's door.
Ted, did you take the first quiz? Oh, Chrissy, we're going on break.
Okay.
Take a break,
Thank
Chrissy.
you.
Just take a break.
So we're starting ministering in the jail and prison system,
Mhm.
with 5 sections to go through
I know.
in an hour.
But some of them are short. And I'm gonna be hitting high points in a lot of them.
Are anybody like feeling bad? Like
No.
this weather? No.
Well, everybody's allergies are
Yeah,
kicking.
allergies are crazy.
I think it's like, I did just come from
Regional changes.
Blue Ridge Mountain, where it's like 50 degrees in the morning
From one
too.
extreme to the
Oh,
other.
That could have something to do with it. It's cold out there right now, isn't it?
here's number 2.
Is it hot or is it cold?
Two.
The one you just
Comfortable to
took.
me out there.
Oh.
Is it like,
Something-
might need a jacket cold?
It says
It
it's
is-
72.
72.
Oh.
I left my phone.
Mine
at
says
home.
70, feels like
Show you
70.
some pictures. and
So no, it's not
stuff.
chilly out there or even cold.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I opened a few
It's
people's
what?
eyes,
Nice,
you know,
Anxious.
so, yeah, straightened out.
So, oh, it's only 70, yeah.
Maybe.
It's not cold.
Yeah, it's not cold.
If
So-
you're not
It's
busy
cold
later-
in here, I bet that's
Or
down.
to
Is,
do
is, is it cold in here?
Yes,
Okay.
it's cold.
Does anybody know how to turn that up?
Yeah.
Or what?
So,
The,
Thermostat.
so ironically,
Are you cold?
Pastor Patty had.
I am.
It is, it's a little chilly. I'm usually not cold either.
It's that new system is kicking.
Ah,
Oh,
yeah.
did they get the new system in?
Not
Yeah.
on this side, but they did something to it.
Mike, when we coming back off break?
At 5:10.
Okay,
I'm stopped the recording yet.
Oh, no.
What was it on?
70.
Oh, yeah, it's
That's
kicking.
cold.
Ours is on
for
68 at
70.
the house, so I don't know why I'm that chilly again.